زيارة آل ياسين. أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سلام على آل ياسين. السلام عليك يا داعي الله ورباني آياته. السلام عليك يا باب الله وديان دينه. السلام عليك يا خليفة الله وناصر حقه. السلام عليك يا حجة الله ودليل إرادته. السلام عليك يا تالي كتاب الله وترجمانه. السلام عليك في أناء ليلك وأطراف نهارك. السلام عليك يا بقية الله في أرضه. السلام عليك يا ميثاق الله الذي أخذه ووكده. السلام عليك يا وعد الله الذي ضمنه. السلام عليك أيها العلم المنصوب والعلم المصبوب والغوث والرحمة الواسعة وعدا غير مكذوب. السلام عليك حين تقوم. السلام عليك حين تقعد. السلام عليك حين تقرأ وتبين. السلام عليك حين تصلي وتقنط. السلام عليك حين تركع وتسجد. السلام عليك حين تهلل وتكبر. السلام عليك حين تحمد وتستغفر. السلام عليك حين تصبح وتمسي. السلام عليك في الليل إذا يغشى والنهار إذا تجلى. السلام عليك أيها الإمام المأمون. السلام عليك أيها المقدم المأمول. السلام عليك بجوامع السلام. أشهدك يا مولاي أني أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله لا حبيب إلا هو وأهله. وأشهدك يا مولاي أن عليا أمير المؤمنين حجته والحسن حجته والحسين حجته وعلي بن الحسين حجته ومحمد بن علي حجته وجعفر بن محمد حجته وموسى بن جعفر حجته وعلي بن موسى حجته ومحمد بن علي حجته وعلي بن محمد حجته والحسن بن علي حجته. وأشهد أنك حجة الله أنتم الأول والآخر وأن رجعتكم حق لا ريب فيها يوم لا ينفع نفسا إيمانها لم تكن آمنت من قبل أو كسبت في إيمانها خيرا. وأن الموت حق وأن ناكرا ونكيرا حق. وأشهد أن النشر حق والبعث حق وأن الصراط حق والمرصاد حق والميزان حق والحشر حق والحساب حق والجنة والنار حق والوعد والوعيد بما حق. يا مولاي شقي من خالفكم وسعيد من أطاعكم، فاشهد على ما أشهدتك عليه، وأنا ولي لك بريء من عدوك. فالحق ما رضيتموه والباطل ما أسخطتموه، والمعروف ما أمرتم به والمنكر ما نهيتم عنه. فنفسي مؤمنة بالله وحده لا شريك له وبرسوله وبأمير المؤمنين وبكم يا مولاي، أولكم وآخركم، ونصرتي معدة لكم ومودتي خالصة لكم. آمين آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين.
أحسنت سيد. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I ask all those in attendance in the center to please observe some of our COVID safety precaution rules, to please make sure you're registered at the front desk, to please follow proper social distance by sitting on the marked spots throughout the center, and to please wear masks at all time as it is mandatory now. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all for your efforts, inshallah. I now ask we recite a loud salawat as we welcome Sayyid Muhammad to come up and bless this evening with a few verses from the Holy Quran. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا. بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين صدق الله العلي العظيم أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
Ahsan Sayyid, can we please recite a loud salawat for that beautiful recitation? I now ask we recite 3 loud salawat as we welcome Sheikh Mohammed Mehdi to come up for tonight's lecture. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله اللهم لعنهم جميعا ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألا إن أولياء الله لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. Unquestionably the friends of Allah will indeed have no fear nor will they grieve. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. What is peace of mind? When we hear the word that someone has peace of mind, they have this assurance, they have this self-confidence. Basically, it's a life that is free from worry, and it's free from angst, and it's free from stress. This is what we call internal happiness. Sometimes we get glimpses of happiness in our lives whenever we're doing something enjoyable. Moments, you get moments of happiness, flashes of happiness. Sometimes when you have an outing with a family, you get that moment where you feel good. Or when people go to Hajj, when they go on a pilgrimage or ziyarah, they get those time of happiness. Sometimes it could be when I'm reading a book. I could be investing my time in reading a novel or a story, and I'm caught away in that moment. I get that moment of happiness. Or even some people watching a television series, they get happy while they're watching it. Others on holidays, sometimes even something as simple as a siesta. You'd have a small kip or nap, you get that little moment of happiness for that slight time. So we get glimpses of what peace of mind is, but it's only momentary. It's not that internal happiness that is throughout our entire life. Now, before we understand what it is like to have this assurance, what it is like to have this peace of mind, I need to understand first why it is essential to have this internal happiness. Why is it essential for me to have this peace of mind? Because when I have assurance, I am more productive. I get more things done. A lot of people fail in school because they're not comfortable. Problems are around them. They don't achieve goals that they set out to achieve because of the things that surround them. If I don't feel tranquil, if I don't feel at ease, if I don't feel that stability within, that what we call this sukoon, this rest within, I don't function as well as I should. It's like, I don't know if you've ever seen that experiment when they wanted to show the effects of racism. It was an experiment I think they did back in the 1960s or 70s. It would have been around that time. During that time, Australia had the White Australia policy. So it was something that we would have understood about how racism works. But they had this experiment where the teacher said to the children that people with blue eyes, because the whole classroom was white, people with blue eyes are smarter, they're stronger, they are better, they're more genetically advanced, and people with brown eyes are slower, and so on and so forth. And then she tested the class with questions to see how they react, and the blue-eyed children were significantly better than the brown-eyed children. And then the next day, she said, I made a mistake. It's actually the brown-eyed children that are smarter and more advanced. It's the blue-eyeds that are slower and are genetically deficient. They're the inferior ones. And when she examined them, the brown-eyed children were the ones that were more achieving the better results. This is how much of an effect it has on you when you're not feeling good. When you're being put down, it has that much of an effect. It brings you right down. You cannot contribute with your fullest ability. You don't function as you should. And even if you take a look at one of the worst ways to, I think, even though it's still used up to now, the worst ways to distinguish between students is examinations, the system. The examination hall, when they bring you into an examination hall, it's very draconian. When they bring you in, it's very, the environment, it's like you've been brought into a dystopian environment. You walk in, there's that quiet where everyone sits down, you can even hear when the pencils touch the table. That environment, so the whole time when you're answering the questions in the exam, what happens? When you get out, you go, oh my God, I should have answered that question with this and that question with that. Because everything comes back because the pressure and the environment doesn't allow you to do what? To answer properly, to give the correct answer. It's a wrong system of examining because you should feel in a comfort zone for you to function properly. Hello, some people might say, hold on, but life, there are a lot of situations where you're living in a dynamic environment, where there's situations where it's turbulent, you need to know how to function. However, when you're thinking right, when your head is not congested with all the problems that you have, doesn't matter how dynamic the environment is, within you are rested, within you have that peace of mind so you can function properly. If I don't feel any security or assurance, then I'm not myself. That's why it's important for me to have this. Hello, why don't most people have peace of mind? Most people you talk to don't have peace of mind. Things affect them. Why is it they don't feel at ease? Why is it that we always want more than what is needed? We always want more than what we have. We're never satiated. We're never satisfied. Your current situation is the best situation you have. You are where you are meant to be in life. What is required in life and what is needed in life is different to what people seek, because you're never going to be fulfilled in this world. What do I need? The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says, Man asbaha fi sarbihi aminan. The first thing he says, man asbaha. When we use the word man asbah, coming from the word subah, that you wake up in the morning. So whoever wakes up the day ahead for him is fi sarbihi aminan. When we talk about sarb, the word that we're talking about is their travel to and from work, where they go to. If they feel secure going to their place of need, if I feel secure going to where I need to go. People live at a time where they do not appreciate what the world is like. This is something I've mentioned so many times. I cannot recall how many times I've said it. That there was a time that people would not leave their houses in the dark. You know, we have a saying in Lebanese, when they go somewhere and there's no one around, they say, Ma fi dumari. Now people hear this, Ma fi dumari. I couldn't even find what. They use this word. I once asked the person in Lebanon, I go, what's a dumari? What is it? And he said, I don't know. So I kept asking, I researched, finally I found out what it meant. What it actually meant, back in the old days, there was a guy that would light the lanterns, you know, the kerosene lamps in the streets. He would light them at the time. There was no one around because it was dark. And when it would go dark, when the environment was dark, what would happen? That's when crime would increase. That's when problems would happen. Because it was dark. People were concealed by the veil of the night, and they were able to commit crime. So people were afraid to do things. But let's talk about when we're talking about the day here. In the day, if you look in Australia's history, in the day, you've ever heard the term train robber? There were train robbers. The locomotives would go and they would be stopped and they would be robbed. Or, for example, you had the horse and the wagons. And the wagons would go. Have you ever heard the term, you know, when someone wants to get in the front seat of the car, what do they say? That's right, they say shotgun. Why do they say shotgun? Because when you were riding shotgun, the person that would actually steer the cart would be at the front. The person next to him held the shotgun. So he'd be riding shotgun. In case what we call in Australia, bush rangers. In America, they call them highwaymen. These people, in Arabic, we call them qatta'in al-turuq. These people would rob you. So the person riding shotgun would have to protect what is in the wagon, and he'd have to fire. And that's how it was. You lived in that way. Even in modern times. I remember when I went to Lebanon, back when I was, would have been over 20 years ago, and there were Syrian checkpoints in Lebanon. Other country has its checkpoints in your country. And they would stop you, and they see what you got in the car. Say you're delivering bread, he'll take 2-3 bags. That's it. Salbata, as we call it, It was a racketeering. They just take it from you, and you just have to accept it. And you couldn't say a word. Now, the Prophet is saying, and the reason I'm saying this, because you live in Australia in a time where you go everywhere. The only thing you're afraid of is a mobile speed camera or a highway patrol. That's all you're afraid of when you're driving. And if you're doing the right thing, you got no problem. If you're not speeding, you got no problem. If you're driving with a valid driver's license, you've got no problem. So the Prophet ﷺ, first condition, he says, "Man asbaha fi sarbihi aminan, wa fi badanihi mu'afa." And they're healthy. They don't have any terminal illness. They don't have any problem. They're not sick. They don't have a chronic pain that is always affecting them. And when I say illnesses vary from illnesses, some illnesses make you incapable of doing anything. Others still, you're able to do some things. So if you have these two things, and sometimes even in Australia we're very spoiled. They'll say things that are chronic illnesses, and they're not as chronic as other illnesses. Thank you very much. Sallallahu Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So, to have that good well-being and to be healthy from any ailment. Then he says the third thing, وَعِنْدَهُ قُوتُ يَوْمِهِ. To have what? Your daily bread, enough to live for the day. This hadith specifically, I've used it several times because this is a beautiful hadith. 3 things I need. I need to be safety, healthy, and enough to eat for the day. Not I got $60,000 in the bank. Not I got, I remember one brother, I said, "Are you married yet?" He was 35. And he said, "Not yet." I said, "Why not?" He said, "I've bought my house, I've got an apartment, I want to get another apartment to be secure." And I was thinking, this guy's never going to get married. If I was on my 3rd apartment, I'd think, I was the Sultan of Brunei. This guy is thinking like he's impecunious. He doesn't have a cent to his name because the poor guy's only got 2 properties. So anyway, the Prophet then says, if you have these 3 things, فَكَأَنَّمَا خُيِّرَتْ لَهُ الدُّنْيَا بِحَذَافِيرِهَا. Did you know what this word means? خُيِّرَتْ لَهُ الدُّنْيَا بِحَذَافِيرِهَا means that it is as if this world was carefully chosen for them. They got the choice pick. They've got the best life. So if I fall under this category, I'm living a good life. Believe it or not, there are people. You could be in Nigeria, you don't know when Boko Haram is going to turn up to your school and you disappear. You could be in Washington, D.C., and a few madmen running with MAGA hats on could be running right through you. You could be anywhere in the world and it's not secure. You could have health issues, health problems that have no cure. You got some illnesses that have no cure. Chronic illnesses that people cannot get out of, and you are in a better position than this. A lot of us, and I'm not judging anyone, I'll talk about myself, have this and more. We have this and more, and everything I have is an extra. Some slight concerns appear. Why? Why is it the smallest of problems causes me stress? Why is it I never look at the blessings that I'm given? Rather, I look at what I'm missing. I always want what someone else has. I always look at the way others are living. If you even take a look at Quraysh, when Allah Azza wa Jal talks about Quraysh in Surah Quraysh, He talks about two main blessings. He says, الَّذِي أَطْعَمَهُم مِّن جُوعٍ وَآمَنَهُم مِّن خَوْفٍ. أَطْعَمَهُم مِّن جُوعٍ. He fed them against hunger so they don't get hungry. وَآمَنَهُم مِّن خَوْفٍ. He gave them the security against fear. Two essential things that, believe me, my dear brothers and sisters, we do not know their value. We do not know how good the value of these two things are. And we still complain. Now the question here is, all right, the verse I introduced the speech with says, Allah. Allah Azza wa Jal say, when He says Allah, inna, when He said Allah, inna, it's like He's not only saying certainly or indeed, okay, almost surely, He's saying unquestionably. And there's not even a sliver of a doubt. There's no doubt whatsoever that awliyaullah, the ones that are friends with Allah, لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون, that they should not be afraid nor should they grieve. Why is that? Why is it? Because they are linked with God. What does it mean to be linked with God? It means to be linked with the hereafter, to perceive this world as what? As a transient world. To perceive this world as a world that's going to pass. To perceive this world is not the share that you should be worried about. The portion that you should be worried about is the portion in the hereafter. Because if you lose out here, not an issue. If you lose out there, it's for eternity. Now, if I don't have this tranquility within, this assurance, I can't progress not only in the dunya, I can't progress in the hereafter. I can't progress religiously. I cannot advance. So when I make my life like this, I'm unable to discover what I have within and what I can actually do. Because my objective in the dunya is what? To gain proximity to Allah Azza wa Jal. And if I want to get nearness to Allah, I need to be at peace with myself. So, what should I do? Because if you feel all over the place, you know, sometimes we're sitting down. I'll talk about myself. I'm not going to talk about anyone else. When I feel all over the place, my prayers aren't adequate. When I fast, I don't feel that tawajjuh. When I sit and I listen to a majlis, I don't feel, when I say tawajjuh, I don't feel that presence. Why? Because I'm all over the place. My thoughts are everywhere. I'm worried about petty things of this world. What should I do? Firstly, one thing that is very important is to limit how much news you read and watch and listen to. Totally limit it. In fact, make it minimal because the news is full of what? The evils of humanity. It's full of the fools of humanity. It's full of people that want to make you internally combust, people that just want to make you blow up. Honestly, if you saw what happened in recent developments, you saw the protests in Washington, D.C., because they were done by white people, so they're not riots. You should know that, you know. It's still like if you want to look at, when I say white, I'm talking about the white, we're talking about Federation, Confederate flag, you know, Mississippi's burning white. That's what I'm talking about, that kind of white. So if you're one of these white people, if you were to rise against your government, you'd be called a resistance. If you're black, you're an insurgency. If you're white, you protest peacefully by, climbing walls and breaking in, but peacefully. But if you're black, you're held off by a military because you're a mob and you're rioting. And this is the way, you watch that news, do you know what that does? That makes your blood boil. And the worst part is they insult your intelligence. There's a problem watching the news. How many people think that all this problem was caused by Donald Trump? Most people do. Which is absurd. Donald Trump isn't the cause of all this. Barack Obama was no better than Donald Trump. Barack Obama wasn't good at Twitter like Donald Trump. That was the only difference. They both killed the same. They both murdered the same. They both pillaged the same cities. A lot of the presidents went to that pedophile island like Donald Trump. It's not like they didn't go. So it was something that was frequented by a lot of these rich people. But everyone turns and says, all right, it's this gigantic Oompa Loompa that's the problem behind all this. This is the way that it's perceived, which is wrong. So when I watch the news, this is what makes me boil. Even if you look at the way we glamorize criminals, all the crimes you see, you look at the articles in the news, they'll put an article. I remember one criminal from our community. Do you know what he had with him? He had an article that was written about showing how bad he was the front page of a paper, and he kept it like it was like a symbol. When I say from our community, I mean that he was born and raised amongst us. I don't mean that he has anything to do with us. But he was proud that his picture was in the paper, even though it depicted him as a criminal, but he was proud of it. Why? Because we have a habit of glamorizing criminals. We always forget who the victims are. We always name who? The criminals. If I told you, you'd say Charles Manson. Can you name one of Charles Manson's victims? Ted Bundy. Name me one of his victims, people don't know. Son of Sam, people know who the criminals are. They don't know, because the news only shows you who the criminal is. And that's the person that gets that recognition. Another thing you should avoid, and a lot of people have difficulty, is you need to avoid a lot of the social media outlets. This is one of the biggest problems to people's misery, because then you see fake wedding photos. We see everyone looks like they're having the time of their life, but they're not. Afterwards, they talk about how ghastly the cake tasted like, how ugly the bride was, because she was all caked up. And then they'll talk about, oh, look at the groom, he was too short for her, because she was wearing stilettos that were 7 inches high. And all this stuff, you sit there, that's not what's shown in the pictures. The pictures shows everyone is having a merry old time. You also see on social media outlets all the fake relationships that exist. Could you believe it? Someone goes on a trip and they've put up 200 snaps. How were they enjoying themselves? Could you imagine how the trip looked like? This person was walking around like this the whole trip, filming it. How did they enjoy themselves? How did they actually enjoy themselves filming? Even if you ever see a football game, the whole crowd's holding their phone. No one's actually in the game. Mate, you might as well have sat at home. What are you doing there? They actually film it for you at the game better than your phone films it. Believe it or not, it does. It's better footage than your phone. But they say, yeah, but I filmed it to show I was there. People don't care that you were there. They hate you because you were there, because they wish they were there. They don't say, oh, my friend's so awesome he went to the game. They become envious of you. So when I sit there and I look at all this social media, it winds me up. Imagine your friend, her and her husband, 1 week, they're at the Maldives, then they're at Bora Bora, wherever they are, and you're just sitting there, your blood's boiling. She's having all this fun time. What about me? You know what I mean? So why do I need to look at that? Why do I need to sit there and have a Snap account to see what other people are doing and making myself miserable? Don't enter. Another thing that makes people miserable is when you enter negative conversations or negative dialogue or negative discourse or negative interaction in any way whatsoever, or any futile discussion, something that's going to get you nowhere. You're going to ask a question, ask something that is of benefit to you. Don't ask a question that's going to be detrimental to you. You know, like if you know you heard a rumor that someone's brother committed a crime. So you cunningly ask, oh, how's your brother so-and-so? Because you want the latest goss. What's the latest gossip on this person? So you enter conversation, you enter into a world where you cause other people misery and yourself. Because then they look at this person, this person's a bit hashuri, as they say. They want to know everything. They're those people that want to know every little detail. And when you know all the bad things, I remember when we studied at school, we studied Othello, the Moor of Venice, for Shakespeare. And I always looked at the character they had, the female character of Desdemona. She was very chaste, very pure, and she had a good opinion of the world. And then you had Iago's wife, who had I think her name was Portia, not as in the car. But anyway, she always had a negative aspect of life. There's people that say everyone's evil. All these women are rotten. All these men are rotten. She was one of those. Negative. These negatrons, these negative people, stay away from them because they make your life miserable. Another thing that lets you have good peace of mind, don't hold grudges. Don't be those people that hold grudges against others. Your life is too short for you to hold a grudge. Hold a grudge where you have to take a stance. And for me, the only stance is if I know the only people I'll take a stance, someone's on the sex offender list. That's where it stops there. Other than that, why do I need to take a stance from someone? Why do I need to hate someone other than that? They have to be someone that's despicable, someone that's so rotten, someone that I would never allow to enter my house. That's the only person. But some people have grudges against siblings, against cousins. You have people living in the same house, husband and wife, that don't talk to each other. And this is what makes you feel miserable. And don't take things personally. It's not always about you. The world doesn't rotate around you. When someone says a comment, don't always assume that means something negative. If someone criticizes you, look at the positives you can find in it. If what they say about you, this is a hadith on Imam al-Qadim alayhi salam. He says, if what they say about you is not true, then you got rewarded for what? For them making an accusation against you. So he says, you got rewarded without even making an effort. Bonus. And if they say something about you that is true, then you should be more what? Condemning of yourself than condemning of them. That I should be a better person than this. The other thing is and this for me is the crux of it all. This is the focal point. Is look at all the problems in the past that you went by. Back at the time when they were a problem, remember how significant they were. And now how do you look at them? They're insignificant. One day your plight today, this is how you'll perceive it. Whatever situation you're in today, many years from now, you go, oh, I was so stupid. I made a big issue out of nothing. I made a massive issue out of something that was so small. There's so, we have a saying in Lebanese, we say, amal min al-habbi ibbi, that he made out of a seed, he made a dome. In other words, he made something small, huge, or in English we say, we call it what they say, they say storm in a teacup, I think. When they make something huge and it's really a small issue. Why should I make it so big? Because many years from now, when someone's on their deathbed, they're going to look back at all these incidents and see how insignificant they were, how petty these things that they were worrying about. Your only goal in life is to gain proximity to Allah, to get near to Allah. Everything else is insignificant. Because if you gain paradise, every other loss is negligible. But if you lose paradise, then no matter what you're given is not good enough. I'll leave with a hadith, and I'll quickly go over it. An Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad ibn Sadiq alayhi salam. He says, Inna sahib ad-din fakkar fa'alathu as-sakina. That the person, sahib ad-din, is someone that has religion. Fakkar. When you have religion, he said, just reflected. He thought, فَعَلَتْهُ السَّكِينَةِ. Then he achieved or acquired tranquility. So when you think of the hereafter, what happens? Then you don't care. The moment you think of the hereafter, you go, oh, what am I so worried about? What is there in this world? That moment where I start thinking about the hereafter, I forget this dunya. He says, إِنَّ صَاحِبَ الدِّينِ فَكَّرْ فَعَلَتْهُ السَّكِينَةِ. Then he says, وَاسْتَكَانَ فَتَوَاضَعَ وَقَنَعَ. Now, when this person thinks and attains tranquility, then he says, وَقَنَعَ. Then he becomes tranquil. When one becomes tranquil, what happens, he says? He says, وَاسْتَكَانَ فَتَوَاضَعَ وَقَنَعَ. When he becomes tranquil, فَتَوَاضَعَ. What does that mean? When we say that someone tawada, we mean that they were humbled. They become humble and they attain what? Qana means they attain conviction. See, when I think, and then I have conviction, I have contentment with what I have. Say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, that I have this. Alhamdulillah, I have my religion. Alhamdulillah, I haven't lost my belief in the hereafter. Then he says, when he has attained this, فَاسْتَغْنَى وَرَضِيَ بِمَا أُعْطِي. Because he has this, then when we say someone hala staghna, that they become needless and they're satisfied with what they have been what? Given. They're happy with what they have. Then he says, وَانْفَرَدَ فَقُفْيَ الْإِخْوَانِ. فَانْفَرَدَ, because when you're happy and you're with what you have, فَانْفَرَدَ, you become secluded, not in the sense that I'm living alone, but I become secluded in the sense that I become self-sufficient. I don't rely on people anymore. I don't expect things from people. Do you know how good it is to have the feeling where you do good for people without expecting anything in return? This is the best feeling you can have. You know, someone calls you, says, can you help me with this? You don't think and say, hold on, what can this person do for me in return? Or when a rich person calls somebody, everyone gets happy because he's rich and he's called me. You know, they all want to be a rich person, always has friends. You know, if a rich person dies, people turn up to his azah, just see how much money might fall from his tomb. You know, they get excited when they're around them. Imagine, you're not like this. You're self-sufficient. Why? Because you know your relationship is with Allah, and Allah has never cut you off. When you're in the womb of your mother, He gave you. He went through barrier upon barrier to sustain you. You were sustained. He never left you. You always had something. He created everything in this world and made it subservient to you. So you have this self-sufficiency. وَرَفَضَ الشَّهَوَاتِ فَصَارَ حُرًّا. This is a hard part. وَرَفَضَ الشَّهَوَاتِ. He rejected his desires. To get to the point where you reject your desires in the sense that you're not subservient to them. Not, I'm hungry, I'll eat wherever I find food. Not, I need intimacy, I don't care where I get it, halal, haram, وما بالطب. فرفض الشهوات. الله أكبر. فصار حرا. You become free. You're not shackled by your desires. Your desires don't control you. You can become like Yusuf alayhi salam. Yusuf. You know, you look at someone like Yusuf, ala nabina wa alih, wa alayhi afdal as-salat was-salam. Yusuf was able to control himself from committing haram. You get people, they'll run, they'll go interstate to commit haram. They'll run off with this secret affair and they go book a hotel. It's a build-up for them to do this and commit haram. Where is Yusuf? Moved away from this in such a position, not to be subservient to your desire. وَخَلَعَ الدُّنْيَا فَتَحَامَ الشُّرُورِ. That he extracted this world, so he warded off evil. So, it's a long hadith, but pretty much what we're going to end with is that it all began with a thought. Reflect. The only way to reflect is you attend Islamic centers. When you leave Islamic centers, be around people that, a friend. Do you have a friend, when you look at them or you're in their presence, they make you want to swear. This is not a friend. When you're with a friend and you control the words that come out of your mouth, that is a friend. You think about the hereafter, that is a friend. They're the people you need to associate with. The ones that want to sit and listen to music, the ones that sit there and remind you of haram, the ones that want to gossip, the ones that want to teach you about how to rip off a system or rot something. They're the people you don't want to associate with. They're the ones that give you the hard heart. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give us tranquility within ourselves and assurance and confidence within ourselves, and make our hearts at peace to know Him and not to turn away from Him. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal not to take us from this world until He is pleased with us. I'll leave the dua for Imam Hujjah, Faj Ahmad. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salli Allahumma ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.
صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله وعلى آلك المظلومين صلى الله عليك وعلى ابنتك فاطمة وعلى ذلعها المكسور والضلع لمدحون بكربلاء السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب أبا الحسين يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. عرج على بيت البتولة فاطما فإن أنين الدار يكفيك هاديا تأنو وقد هد الفراق قرارها وذوبها جلدا على العظم واريا. إلهي إلهي لقد هد الأسى قلب فاطم ولم يبق إلا الوجه والحزن إلهي لقد عفت الحياة وأهلها فعجل في وفاته لا أريد حياتي ووحشة الأيام بعد محمد ويا ذل الأيام وما دهاني رمتني مصيبات الزمان لو أنها رمت واضح الأيام صرنا ليالي على خاطري ذكرى وفي القلب لوعة يخرج من جمر المصاب أي ذكريات سيدتي أوجعت قلبك أهي ذكرى رحيل النبي أم هي ذكرى حرق الباب سيدتي what memories have broken your heart? Is it the memory of losing Rasulullah? Is it the memory of your door being burned? Is it the memory of the loss of your Muhsin? أم هي ذكرى ترويع الحسنان؟ يلا تعالوا نرى أي ذكريات كسرت قلب فاطم. أنا تعودت كل يوم تجيني وتوقف على الباب علي تسلم وتدخل شو حلوة دخلت الغياب أشوفك يبتهج قلبي إش حالي لو هالوجه غاب والله الدنيا ما تسوى بلا شخصك الغالي يا أبو بعدك ذربوني يا أبو قومك زهرة زهرة يا زهرة زهرة تقلنا قومك يا ابويا ضربوني خلاف عينك ما رحوني وبر المدينة طلعوني ومن البواكي عليك منحوني ومن حملي يا ابويا سقتوني وبين الباب والجدار يعسروني Fatima in her nights after Rasulullah would miss her father. They say that they would bring the cloak of Rasulullah to her, and every time she would smell the cloak of Rasulullah, she would fall unconscious until Imam Ali would no longer give it to her. She would go to the grave of Rasulullah constantly crying at the grave as she misses her father. These are the words of Sayyidah Zahra Salamullahi alayha. This is what she used to say when she used to go to the grave. ماذا على من شم تربة أحمد ألا يشم مدى الزمان غواليا صبت علي مصائب لو أنها صبت على الأيام سرنا لياليا. The days would pass as she missed her father, until she would eventually bump into Bilal al-Habashi, the mu'addin of Rasulullah. She would ask, "Oh Bilal, where were you? Why did you leave Medina?" He said, "I made a promise to myself that after the Prophet I will not adhan ever again. I miss my father and I want to bring back the days when you would adhan and my father would be in the house. Of course, Sayyidati, I will recite the adhan today." Sayyidah Zahra would return to the house, prepare al-Hasanat. From the day the Prophet passed, Bilal had not recited the adhan in Medina. The people of Medina were all waiting. Bilal stood on the mi'dana. It is as if we are in the shoes of Sayyidah Zahra Salamullahi alayha. What could she say as the adhan is being recited in Medina? Saha Bilal, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. وإذا بالزهراء أنت وحنات أباتا. هذا مؤذنك بلال يؤذن أباتا. من لحظك ولمسك. She would then turn to the children and say, she could turn to her children and say, if Bilal would say the takbir, my father would be performing the wudu. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. وإذا بالزهراء أنات وحنات. هذا بلال يؤذن أبتا. قم من لحظك ورمسك أبتا. إن الناس اصطفوا للصلاة قم يا أبا. And if Bilal recited the Shahada, my father would leave the house to the masjid. What would happen when he recites Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah? And then Hassan and Hussein would run to the Mi'dana, crying in tears, saying Kafa, 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 Ya Bilal, that's enough, that's enough. Maybe our mother Fatima would pass away, Ya Bilal. The days would pass and Fatima would leave this world, and then Sayyidah Zainab would miss her mother, to the point that at one point when Amir al-Mu'mineen in the night was on the grave of Sayyidah Zahra salamullahi alayha, wa wayla wa wayla wa musibata, he would fall asleep. Just very shortly, he would say Sayyidah Zahra in his dream. She would be telling him, Ya Ali, go back to the house. Ya Ali. Brothers and sisters, in the wasiyah of Sayyidah Zahra salamullahi alayha, she would say to Ali, Ya Ali, read the Quran at my grave. Rasulullah would say in the dream to Sayyidah Zahra salamullahi alayha, why are you telling me to go back to the house at this time? Wa wayla, you asked me to read the Quran at your grave. You asked me to read the Quran at your grave, Ya Ali. Then Fatima would say to Ali, Ya Ali, Zainab is crying in the house. She wants you. She has no mother to comfort her, and now she has no father. Imam Ali would rush back to the house and begin to comfort Sayyidah Zainab. He would hold Sayyidah Zainab. He would ask her, what's wrong, oh my dear Zainab? She would reply, Inni mushtaq, I miss my mother Fatima. Sahat Yumma, Sahat Yumma, ya Yumma, بقينا من بعدك يتامى. يما الدهر سوى ابن بسهامة. يا يما الليل بعدك ما انام، وتشوف قبال عينك طولك يلو، واشوف قبال عيني طولك يلو. يوم الليلة بعدك ما انام، وتشوف قبال عيني طولك يلوح. Sayyidah Zainab would be going right to left, swaying as she cries from the tragedy. But Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I want to say to you, who is going to go to Zainab when she is crying on the 10th of Muharram, as she would call for her mother and call for her father? What could she say? أقبل علي الليل وازدادت الوحشة وما شوف غير ايتام تتصارخ بدحشة. أقبل علي الليل وازدادت الوحشة وما شوف غير ايتام تتصارخ بدحشة. وشيخ العشير حسين ما حد شال نعشاه، متروح وبقت رت عليه الأكبر وجسام. ويلي عالزهرة المظلومة، 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 ويلي عالزهرة المظلومة. Brothers, can we please stand up and make a circle socially distanced?